Good morning students. Today we'll start with our fourth unit which discusses with the formulation and evaluation of suspensions, emulsions and your solutions. So first we'll discuss about your suspension. So this you have already studied in your first year pharmaceutics. It will be just an addition to that. So you remember the definition, what are suspensions? They are heterogeneous biphasic systems, right? They are biphasic. Why biphasic? Because they are having two phases, so they are biphasic system. So suspensions are your coarse heterogeneous biphasic dispersion containing finely divided insoluble solids or insoluble material which are suspended in a liquid medium. I repeat the definition, suspensions are your coarse heterogeneous biphasic dispersions containing finely divided insoluble material suspended in a liquid medium. Why insoluble? Suppose if it was soluble, the solid is soluble in a solvent, then it becomes a solution dosage form. So here the solid is insoluble in the liquid medium. That is why you are having two phases. Heterogeneous means it is not a homogeneous mixture. Homogeneous means you cannot disintegrate, you cannot differentiate between two phases. Here you can differentiate between two phases. That is why they are heterogeneous. Coarse means what? You can see the particles. The particle size is visible. So they are coarse, having two phases, heterogeneous. They are coarse heterogeneous biphasic dispersions containing finely divided insoluble material which is suspended in a liquid medium. So a liquid medium whatever you are using, that is, this is also known as your continuous phase or the external phase. Your liquid medium will be a continuous phase or the external phase, whereas your insoluble material which is your solids, that will be your internal phase. Okay, that will be a internal phase or the dispersed phase. Your insoluble solids, they form the internal phase or the dispersed phase and they are suspended in the liquid medium. So your liquid medium is also known as a dispersion medium or the continuous medium or the external medium. So you should know these terms, these are very very important. Okay, continuous or external or dispersion, here internal or dispersed or discontinuous phase. So this was with the definition. Next, coming to the advantages of suspensions. So you can expect this for 2 marks question. Define suspension and mention their advantages. Okay, so first we'll have a look on what are advantages. So for first comes, whenever you talk about suspensions, the first advantage which comes is because the patients who are not able to swallow the tablets or capsules, so they offer, suspensions offer an alternative oral dosage form for the patients who cannot swallow tablets or capsules. Example, you see oral antibiotics. See, whenever any child is having fever or if adult is having fever, they cannot swallow tablet or capsules. So pediatric and geriatric patients find difficulty in administering the medication. In such case, you give oral antibiotics in a suspension form or analgesics or antipyretics that can be formulated as, that can be administered as suspensions. Okay, so they offer an alternative oral dosage form for patients who cannot swallow tablets and capsules. Example are your oral antibiotics, analgesics and antipyretics. They can be administered as a suspension dosage form. For example, your antibiotic Augmentin, which is taken by adults and children. That is, you get a dry powder and then you have to suspend it in a vehicle at the time of administration. So it is an example for suspension. The next advantage, they are used to deliver poorly water soluble drugs that can be formulated as, that cannot be formulated as solution. Okay, here it is cannot. So some drugs, water, if they are not water soluble, you cannot formulate them into a solution. For solution, the main criteria is what? The solid should be water soluble. So then it forms a homogeneous solution. But with some, there are water soluble, poorly water soluble drugs that you can give in suspension form. So they are used to deliver poorly water soluble drugs that cannot be formulated in solution form, that you can formulate in a suspension form. Next, drugs that have an unpleasant taste can be formulated as suspension to reduce the interaction of drug with the taste receptors in the mouth. So if the drug is having an unpleasant taste, you cannot administer it by, you cannot swallow it, right? So if you formulate it in a suspension form, it will have a reduced interaction with the taste receptors in the mouth because it will not stay in the mouth. immediately you'll gulp it, it will go in your stomach, right? So there will be a minimum interaction with the taste receptors, so you can easily administer the unpleasant drugs. Next, suspended drug must undergo dissolution step prior to crossing the biological membrane. So whenever to reach the active site, it should cross the biological membrane of that particular site. So before crossing that, because there is no disintegration step here, right? Already it is in a liquid form, just they need to undergo dissolution. So as the suspended drug must undergo dissolution, they offer a way of providing sustained release of drug, even if you administer by parenteral route or topical route or oral route of administration. If you administer the suspension by any of these two routes, parenteral, topical or oral, they are said to provide the sustained release of drug, because they first undergo dissolution and then they cross the biological membrane to show the action. So there is a sustained action which can be seen by administering suspensions in any of the route, by any of the route of administration. So these are the main advantages of suspensions. Coming to the classification of suspensions. Okay, suspensions are classified in various ways. So what are that? Number first, based on the physical state of suspension. Based on the physical state of suspension, that is whether it is in a suspension form, aerosol is nothing but a gaseous, or foam. Based on physical state, whether it is in a suspension form, aerosol form or foam. Next, based on the size of dispersed particles. So what are the dispersed particles which are dispersed in a dispersion medium? What is the size of those particles? Based on that, they are classified as molecular dispersion, colloidal dispersion and coarse dispersion. A molecular dispersion is the one in which the size of particles is less than 1 nanometer. You know the relationship between micrometer and nanometer? 1 millimeter is equal to 10 power 3 micrometer. 1 micrometer is equal to 10 power 3 nanometers. So nanometer is very, very small. Bigger than nanometer is a micrometer. Bigger than a micrometer is a millimeter. So the size is less than 1 nanometer in molecular dispersion. This is mm. 1 mm is equal to 10 power 3 micrometer. 1 micrometer is equal to 10 power 3 nanometer. Colloidal dispersion is the one in which the size of the particle is in between 0.1 to 0.2 micrometer. And the coarse dispersion is the one in which the particle size is greater than 0.2 micrometers. So based on the size, they are classified. Next, based on the behavior of the dispersed phase. Based on the behavior of the dispersed phase means how the particles are existing in the suspension. You might have heard this. This we have already discussed in pharmaceutics first year. Deflocculated suspensions and flocculated suspensions. So dispersed particles, if they come together and they form a network-like structure, then it becomes a flocculated suspension. Whereas if a discrete particles or a solid particles are existing as individual entities, that means they are existing as discrete particles, then it becomes a deflocculated suspension. Okay, each of them has their own advantages and disadvantages, and the differences between these two is also very important question for 2 marks. Write the differences between flocculated and deflocculated suspension. So we will discuss it. Now, what are the differences? Okay, so this is the classification, and I have told you a pharmaceutical suspension, they may be either oral, topical or parenteral. Oral suspensions are those which you take it orally by mouth. For example, your antibiotic preparations, your antacids, your radiopaque suspensions, all these are your oral suspensions. Okay, and in this the vehicle, it may be a syrup, a sorbitol solution, or a water containing artificial sweetener. Because you are taking it by mouth, so mouth feel is very important in this kind of oral suspensions. Next, in topical suspensions. Okay, topical suspensions is which you apply externally. So in that you will write shake well before use. So the most commonly example is your calamine lotion. Okay, which is widely you have formulated even in your pharmaceutics lab. Calamine suspension, calamine lotion, which comes under topical suspension. Okay, then these topical lotions, they have very low settling rates. Okay, next here parenteral suspensions. So the parenteral suspensions are those in which the solid content is in between 0.5 to 5% weight by volume. The solid content in parenteral suspensions is in between 0.5 to 5% weight by volume. Okay, except for some insoluble forms of penicillin in which the concentration may exceed than this. So the vehicles for this parenteral suspensions include your saline solution, that is 0.9% weight by volume saline solution, 0.9% weight by volume of your saline solution. So this is the ideal vehicle. Okay, and whatever the vehicle you are using, it should be sterile. Yes, ophthalmic suspensions are instilled into the eye. So the vehicle which you are employing, it should be isotonic and aqueous in composition. Okay, and this is with your parenteral suspension. Next, we'll discuss what are the ideal characteristics of a suspension. Ideal characteristics, very important. The dispersed particles, that means the solid particles, should be of such a size that they do not settle rapidly in container. So whenever you are administering suspension, you might have noticed that it will be written shake well before use, so that whatever the particles they are settled, when you shake it, they get again redispersed again, so you get a uniform dose. So that is why the dispersed particles should be such size that they do not settle rapidly in the container. And even if they settle, even if sedimentation occurs, it should not form a hard cake. Even if the sedimentation is occurring, it should not form a hard cake. Next, the product should be easy to pour, it should have a pleasant taste, and it should be resistant to microbial attack. So whatever product you have formulated, it should be easy to pour, it should have a pleasant taste, and it should be resistant to microbial attack. So these are your ideal characteristics of a suspension. The three major concerns which are associated with suspensions include, so in order to ensure this, what you have to ensure is, the three major concerns is ensuring adequate dispersion of the particles in the vehicle. So for satisfying this ideal characteristics, you have to ensure that the particles are dispersed. So you have to ensure ensuring the dispersion of particles in the vehicle. Then you have to minimize the settling of the dispersed particles. Minimizing the settling of the dispersed particles. Then preventing caking of these particles. Even if the sediment is formed, you should prevent a cake formation. Cake is nothing but a hard solid mass will be formed, which is very difficult to redisperse. So you have to prevent that caking. Okay, so these are the three major concerns. So next I told you we'll discuss about flocculation and deflocculation. Very important. In the next class we'll continue with the other things. So today we'll discuss about flocculation and deflocculation. So you try to understand what do you mean by this, and you should know the differences between these two kind of suspensions, flocculated suspensions and deflocculated suspensions. Okay, so flocculation and deflocculation. So as I have told you, the flocculation means network of particles. Deflocculation means the particles are existing individually. So what is the theory behind this? How flocculation and deflocculation occurs? So you know zeta potential. Zeta potential, it is an indication of the potential which is existing at the surface of particle. Zeta potential, you will like this. So this is a measure of the potential which is existing at the surface of the particle. So whatever potential is there at the surface of the particle, that is denoted by a zeta potential. Okay, when zeta potential is relatively high, for example 25 millivolts or more, so that means the particles are having more zeta potentials in, let us suppose 25 or more. So what will happen? The particles will repel each other. So the repulsive forces will exceed the attractive forces. You know, every particle will have some attractive forces and repulsive forces. If the particle potential is more than 25 millivolts, then the repulsive forces will exceed your attractive London forces. The repulsive forces between the two particles will exceed the attractive London forces. So the particles will get dispersed and they are said to be deflocculated. So now in this case you are having deflocculated suspension. Why? Because the particles are separated, they are existing as separate entities. So here you have deflocculated. But if in deflocculated suspension, even if they are brought close together by random collision or random agitation, your deflocculated particles will resist collision due to their high surface potential. You are getting my point? Deflocculated particles will are having high surface potential. So due to this, even if the individual particles, when you shake them randomly, even if they come together, they will resist the collision due to your high surface potential. So this is with your deflocculated suspension. Whenever you add a flocculating agent or the addition of an ion whose charge is opposite in sign to that of a particle. So suppose now you are adding an agent. This agent is having a sign which is opposite to that of the particle. Sign opposite to that of the particle. So now what will happen? Your zeta potential will get lowered. Now you will have lowering of zeta potential. So if the lowering of zeta potential is there, what will happen? The particles will come together, right? The repulsion force will be less. The repulsion forces will be less and the forces of attraction will predominate. Due to forces of attraction predomination, the particles will approach each other and they form loose aggregates which are known as flocks. So now flocks which are nothing but loose aggregates are formed. How these flocks are formed? If you add an agent or ion which is having an opposite sign to that of particle, so the particle repulsive forces will be less, decreased due to lowering of zeta potential, and the attractive forces will predominate. Due to that attraction, the particles will combine and they form loose aggregates which are known as flocks. Such a system is said to be flocculated suspension. So I think you got the difference between flocculated and deflocculated suspension. Now I will give you a table. You note down that differences between flocculated and deflocculated suspension. Very, very important from the examination point of view. Flocculated and deflocculated suspension. So whatever I am telling you, it's combined from Remington, Lachman and other books. So please do follow the video and make notes. The first one, in flocculated suspension, you can write the particles form loose aggregates. So here they form flocks which are known as your loose aggregates. Okay, here the particles exist in suspension as separate entities. Here they are existing as separate entities. Here they are forming flocks which are nothing but the loose aggregates. Next, in flocculated, the rate of sedimentation is high as the particles settle as a flock, which is a collection of particles. So here there are flocks. Heavier the particle, the rate of settling is more. So these are heavy because they are combined. Many particles combined. Here they are separate. So what will happen? The rate of sedimentation will be high. ROS is nothing but rate of sedimentation. Rate of sedimentation is high. Why it is high? So you have to explain, because as the particles settle as a flock, which is nothing but a collection of particles. And here the rate of sedimentation is low as each particle settles separately and particle size is minimal. Okay, rate of sedimentation is low. Why? Because each particle settles separately and the particle size is minimal. Next, third, a sediment is formed rapidly. Sediment is formed rapidly. Why sediment is formed rapidly? Because network of particles, they are having high size. They will, heavier particles settle fastly. So sediment is formed rapidly. But whereas here sediment will be formed slowly. Sediment will be formed slowly. Next, the sediment, here the sediment is packed closely. Here the sediment is packed closely and possesses a scaffold-like structure. Okay, here the packed closely and it is having a scaffold-like structure. Okay, particles do not bond tightly to each other and a hard dense cake does not form. So here hard cake is not formed. Coming to here, the sediment becomes very closely packed. Okay, here there what the sediment is packed loosely, have told you. Here the sediment is packed very closely. Due to the weight of the upper layers of the sedimenting material, the sediment becomes very closely packed. Okay, and here repulsive forces between the particles are overcome and a hard cake is formed that is difficult to redisperse. Here you will get a hard cake. Okay, fifth one you write here, hard cake is not formed. Here hard cake is formed. Why hard cake is formed? Because the repulsive forces can be easily overcome, so attractive forces are more, right? So hard cake is formed. Hard cake is formed, that is difficult to redisperse. Okay, and here I have told you hard cake does not form because particles does not bond tightly to each other. Here they are loose flocks, right? Flocculated means loose flocks. So hard cake will not be formed. Here hard cake is formed. That is difficult to redisperse. But it is not impossible. You can easily redisperse it. Here hard cake is not formed and the sediment is easy to redisperse. Sixth one you can write. Sediment is easy to redisperse. Here what you can write? Sediment is difficult to redisperse. I have already told you sediment is difficult to redisperse. Next, the suspension has a pleasing appearance. Which is having pleasing appearance? Yes, deflocculated will have a pleasing appearance. Why? Because they are separate entities. They are not forming flocks. They are not settling. So it will have a pleasing appearance. A deflocculated suspension will have a pleasing appearance as a suspended material will remain suspended for a long time. Okay, so the supernatant also remains cloudy here. Next, here the suspension is due to rapid sedimentation and clear. There is no clear supernatant here. So due to that, this is not pleasing in appearance. Okay, this suspension is not pleasing in appearance. Why? Because there will be no clear supernatant region. There is no clear supernatant because they are flocculated, they are getting settled, so there is no clear supernatant region. The suspension is due to rapid sedimentation and due to the presence of a clear the presence of an obvious clear supernatant region. There is a clear supernatant region. Why? Because all the particles are settled down, so supernatant will be obviously clear, right? The suspension is due to rapid sedimentation, you will have a clear supernatant region. So that is why this is not pleasing in appearance. This can be minimized if the volume of sediment is made large. Okay, so this can be minimized if you increase the volume of supernatant. If you increase the volume of increase the volume of the sediment, what will happen? The supernatant will that can easily redisperse. So the supernatant will be clear. Apart from that, it will have a pleasing appearance. So in short, you can say is, as the flocks will aggregate and they will settle down, there will be clear supernatant. So this can be minimized if the volume of sediment is made large. So if you increase the volume of the sediment, if the volume of sediment will be increased, what will happen? Yes, the clear supernatant region will decrease, right? So these are with the differences between flocculated and deflocculated suspension. Please go through the video and make notes from Remington and Lachman. This is very important and easy unit. Thank you. If you have any doubts, please let me know.